Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. Welcome to the online lecture on nonlinear control systems. Today we are going to discuss another special topic in control systems, which is optimal control. And in the optimal control theory we shall be discussing Pontryagin's maximum principle, which is one of very famous topics in optimal control theory. And just like I said in the previous lectures on adaptive control and fault tolerant control, optimal control theory is also in itself quite vast, and there is an in-depth analysis and methods available regarding optimal control theory, and it deserves a full-fledged course in the graduate program. But here we shall be discussing optimal control just as an introductory topic, and this we shall be discussing this as part of our course on nonlinear control systems. So beginning with the optimal control, what are the basic ingredients of optimal control problem? First of all, we need equations of motion, usually in the state space model format. There could be linear time invariant model or nonlinear model. Then we need the cost function. So just like there is a relationship between stability and equilibrium point, we cannot talk about stability unless we specify the equilibrium point of the system. Similarly, we cannot talk about optimal control problem without specifying the cost function that is underlying this optimal control problem. So you cannot say that my input or my control law is optimal without specifying that the criteria with respect to which your your control signal or control law is optimal. So we have to specify the initial conditions in optimal control problem, terminal conditions, control constraints and state constraints, and there might be mixed control and state constraints. So these are basic ingredients of optimal control problem. This is a fairly generic list but not exhaustive. There might be some other issues in the optimal control problem that one might be considering. For example, the uncertainties involved in the problem. There might be some the disturbances or sensor noise that one might be considering. So here we are not these are the ingredients of deterministic optimal control problem, not stochastic optimal control problem. Okay, so next we look at optimal control problem classification with respect to cost function. So different optimal control problems can be modeled as with respect to cost function. We consider first the state space model, x dot equal f of x, x of t, u of t, comma t. So this is the nonlinear function of state, control input and time itself. So if time appears explicitly, then it's a time variant system, otherwise it is time invariant system. If this function is nonlinear, then it is a nonlinear state space function or state space model, and if f is a linear function, then it is a linear model. Okay, so first the generic form of a cost function related to optimal control problem is some final terminal values of the states, some function k of the terminal value of the states, plus the integral of function L of the state and the control input from the initial time to the final time of the control problem. Final time of the control problem is sometimes fixed and sometimes it might be free. So there are infinite horizon optimal control problems and finite horizon optimal control problems, but we shall not be going into the details of that. You can see that we have two types of terms. First is the integral term, which depends upon the state value and the control input value, and then there is a terminal cost, which is depending upon only the final value of the state variables. The problem is called Mayer's problem if L is 0. So if the cost function is like this, only depending upon the final value of the state, then this is called Mayer's optimal control problem. and if k is 0, then the cost function will be only the integral of a function of state and input. This is Lagrange's problem. And if we have both the terms available in the cost function, like this, the first one, this is Bolt's problem. So these are the three types of problems: Mayer's problem, Lagrange's problem, and Bolt's problem. So we can solve optimal problem. So if you can solve Bolt's problem, and if you put L equals 0, then you have Mayer's problem, and if you put k equals 0, then you have Lagrange's problem. Actually, these types of problems are interconvertible into each other, but we shall not be going into the detail of how to do that. We just discussed the basic ingredients of optimal control problems, main types of optimal control problems, and we move straight ahead on to the there is one more type here. When k is equal to 0 and L is equal to 1, then this becomes the time optimization problem. Then J will become simply T1 minus T0. This is your cost function. Cost function is the difference between final and initial time. So this is the time optimal problem, control problem. And I was saying that in this lecture we are going to discuss the basic ingredients of optimal control problems, then the classification that we have discussed already, and now we move on straight to the Pontryagin maximum principle. Pontryagin maximum principle, I chose this topic because this is one of the main topics in optimal control courses. So if you are not going to take optimal control theory as a full-fledged course in your graduate career, then at least you should know about the Pontryagin maximum principle. So formal statement of necessary conditions for optimality. So Pontryagin maximum principle provides you necessary conditions for optimality of control law. It does not give you sufficient conditions. So it means that if you satisfy Pontryagin maximum principle conditions, then you may have optimal control problem solution. But if you do not satisfy these conditions, then you are guaranteed that your control solution is not optimal. So this is the meaning of necessary condition. So we formulate the control problem in terms of that would lead us to the Pontryagin maximum principle and its statements. So first of all, the optimal control problem is to minimize the cost function of this form, which has both the terminal condition and the integral part in the cost function. And then this is subject to the dynamics of the system, which is x dot equal f of x u t, and the initial conditions x of t naught equal x naught. For t naught should be in some range of times. So all the time values, the initial time and the final time, should belong to some finite range of times. This is the requirement of the formulation of control problem. And then there could be certain constraints on the states of the system. So for example, g, some function of a state, is equal to 0. This is a constraint. So there could be total j constraints. G, I belong to 1, 2, 3 up to so on up to j. So there can be up to j constraints. So there should be finite number of constraints, but there can be few, 1 or 2 constraints, and there can be many constraints in the system. It depends from system to system. Alright, so the u input belongs to some compact set which is closed and bounded, and this means that your control input at all times should be finite and well determined. It should be within the closed and bounded set omega. And similarly, u is basically it's a function from time on to Rm, which is an m dimensional vector, and it should be at least piecewise continuous. So you cannot have a discrete control input. It should be either piecewise continuous, or if it is smoother than that, then that's great, but at least it should be piecewise continuous. And then this set omega, which to which this control signal belongs, this should be a subset of a larger set which is basically a compact set. A compact means that the set is both closed and bounded. A closed set is a set which includes its boundary values, and a bounded set means that all of its values are finite. There is no infinity involved in the compact set. Alright, so this is the optimal control problem, where we have the cost function specification, the dynamics, and we need to minimize the cost function subject to the dynamics, the initial condition, the constraints, the control signal constraints, and the constraints on the type of the control signal, which is piecewise continuous in this case. So there are some smoothness assumptions. First of all, the dynamics of your system should be continuous. So x dot equal f of x and u and t. So f function should be continuous function, and not only continuous, but partial f by partial x should be defined and should also be continuous. So Jacobian matrix of your state dynamics should be a continuous matrix, or all the terms in the Jacobian matrix should be continuous. L is the cost function, it is a part of cost, so this function should also be continuous, and partial L by partial x should be defined and continuous, and then partial L by partial x, I should have written it down, partial L by partial t. So partial L by partial t should also be defined and continuous, and similarly partial k by partial x should be defined and continuous, and partial k by partial t should also be defined and continuous. G, which is the function on the constraints on the state variables, this should also be continuously differentiable, and these conditions must hold for all the x in Rn, and for the times in the range t1 to t2, and for all control signals in the set omega hat. Alright, so these are the smoothness assumptions in the problem. We have so far discussed the problem itself and the underlying smoothness assumptions. Next we define something called extremal. So what is an extremal? Extremal is a triple which includes state vector, control input, and time, the final time. So a triple of state vector, control input, and final time is an extremal if it satisfies the equations of motion and other imposed constraints that we have seen in the optimal control problem formulation, and there exists a trajectory of adjoint variables p as function of t. So adjoint variables are basically mirror variables for the state variables, and a constant scalar p naught belong to real numbers, and a constant vector alpha belongs to the real vectors of the size j. J is the size of constraints. So each alpha scalar value corresponds to a particular constraint on the state variables. So these vectors should be such that p naught belongs to 0 and 1. So it could be either 0 or 1, but p naught and alpha vector all cannot be simultaneously 0. This means that if p naught is 0, then alpha as a whole could not be a vector of all zeros. There should be some alpha values which are non-zero, and if p naught is 1, then alpha could be a vector of all zeros, but p naught and alpha simultaneously cannot be all zeros. So this is the requirement for extremal. So far we know that an extremal triple, a triple is qualified to be an extremal if it is satisfying the equations of motion, it is satisfying the imposed constraints, and there exists a trajectory of adjoint variables and a constant p naught and a constant alpha such that p naught and alpha is not simultaneously 0, and the adjoint equations and transversality conditions are satisfied. And not only that, but the last condition is that u is a minimizer of Hamiltonian defined by this equation. So Hamiltonian is P naught times L, which is the cost function term, and P transpose times the dynamics of the system. So this P naught is a scalar, but this P transpose is the transpose of the adjoint vector, which is the same size vector as that of the state space. So Hamiltonian is basically a scalar. So because this is a scalar and this L cost function term is also a scalar, and this vector transpose times another vector, that is also a scalar. This is like a dot product between the adjoint variables and the dynamics of the system. So this means that a Hamiltonian value for any for the given u in the extremal should be less than any Hamiltonian value for any other control input v that is not u, for all v belong to the set to which u belongs, and for all the time values. So this slide is basically presenting a lot of things, so we need to absorb the material presented in this slide. So let me try to go through it again. So an extremal is a triple x of t, u of t, t1, and this triple is extremal if it is satisfying a whole bunch of conditions. So what are those conditions? What are the conditions that an extremal has to satisfy? What are the conditions that this triple has to satisfy in order to qualify as being an extremal? First condition is that in this extremal, where x of t is a function of time, u of t is some other function of time, this must satisfy the equations of motion, which are x dot equal f of x, u and t. Second is that it also should satisfy the constraints. The constraint involves that u should belong to certain set omega, and the constraints, all the given constraints in terms of g1, g2, g3 functions must be satisfied, and the initial condition must be satisfied, and so on. And then the next condition that the extremal has to satisfy is that there must exist a trajectory of adjoint variables which satisfy the adjoint equations. I have not mentioned adjoint equations on this slide. I will mention the adjoint equations on the next slide. Then you will know what are the equations of adjoint variables that this triple has to satisfy in order to qualify for being called an extremal. So the extremal has to satisfy equations of motion, it has to satisfy all the constraints that we have discussed in the optimal control problem formulation slide, it has to satisfy the adjoint equations, and there must be some trajectory of adjoint variables corresponding to these adjoint equations. Then it has to satisfy the transversality conditions, and then it has to satisfy the condition that Hamiltonian with the given u of t in the extremal should be less than all other possible values of u of t, and the Hamiltonian is a scalar which is given by p naught times L plus p transpose times f of x u t. So this is the definition of an extremal, which involve a whole bunch of. Okay, so now we look at the adjoint equations. So adjoint equation is basically a partial h by partial x. So it is the partial derivative of the Hamiltonian. Hamiltonian is a scalar. So if you take the partial derivative of Hamiltonian with respect to x, because x is a vector, so when you take a derivative of a scalar with respect to a vector, it becomes a vector. Specifically, Hamiltonian is p of t, p into t times this. If you look at the definition of the Hamiltonian in the previous slide, so Hamiltonian is p transpose times f and p naught times L. So if you take the partial derivative with respect to x of these things, then this becomes the minus partial f by partial x transpose into p of t, and then minus p naught into partial L by partial x transpose. So when you take the partial derivative of Hamiltonian with respect to x, this becomes a vector, and this is the dynamics of adjoint variables. So if you these are the adjoint equations. P dot equals these dynamics, which is this is a matrix times p of t. So as you have x dot equal some matrix A into x plus b into u, this is similar to that. So p dot is equal to this matrix times p plus some constant times another matrix partial L by partial x. So this is similar to x dot equal ax plus bu. Transversality conditions are basically vector conditions in which you have the left hand side. Transversality conditions basically are used to determine the final values of the adjoint variables and final values of the state variables. In these conditions, you can see that all the transversality conditions are in terms of time t1. T1 is the final time in the control problem. So these conditions are basically the conditions on the final values of adjoint variables and final values of the state variables. So you can see that here p of t1, which is a vector, so the adjoint variable vector at final time minus p naught times partial k by partial x. K is the cost function term, which is the terminal cost on the state variables. This difference, and the another part of the vector is minus Hamiltonian minus p naught times partial k by partial t. Partial k by partial t will be a scalar because k function is a scalar and time is also scalar. So this whole term is a scalar and this whole term is a vector. So this vector joined with the another scalar, so this is another vector. So the length of this vector will be n plus 1. So this will be n plus 1 cross 1 vector, and this vector will be equal to sum of these vectors. So this is sum from I is equal to 1 to j, and all of the vectors, all of the j vectors are alpha j, so alpha I times the derivative of constraint with respect to x, which is if you take the transpose of that, then this becomes n cross 1 vector, and derivative of the constraint with respect to time is a scalar. So this is again n plus 1 cross 1 vector. So this is a vector of n plus 1 rows and single column. This is also n plus 1 rows and single column vector. This vector equals sum of j vectors. So if you add all the j vectors up, then this will be a single vector here and single vector here. So if you equate the components of the vector, you will have n plus 1 equations, and you can determine the final values of different adjoint variables and state variables from these transversality conditions. So in order for so going back to the this definition of extremal. So extremal, a triple is shall be extremal if it satisfies equations of motion and other imposed constraints in the control problem, and it also should satisfy a trajectory of adjoint variables which is consistent with the adjoint equations and transversality conditions. Now you have seen the adjoint equations and transversality conditions, and you can select p naught and alpha. It's your choice what value you select for them, but the constraint is that p naught cannot be anything other than 0 or 1, and if you select p naught to be 0, alpha cannot be an all 0 vector. So p naught comma alpha, all of these variables cannot be simultaneously 0. And then Hamiltonian is given by is a scalar which is given by p naught times L plus p transpose f, and this u in the extremal should result in minimum value of the Hamiltonian. So this is basically the definition of extremal, and based on this definition of extremal, we are now ready for necessary conditions for optimality, the Pontryagin maximum principle, for which we did all this hard work. So the maximum principle is that if x star, u star and t1 star is a solution of the optimal control problem, then x star, u star, t star is an extremal. This is the Pontryagin maximum principle. So Pontryagin maximum principle states that if you have a solution. So we don't usually have the solution of the control problem. We are looking for a solution to the control problem. So how we use this principle is that we find an extremal, we calculate an extremal, and then we hope that this extremal is a solution for the optimal control problem. And if it is a solution to the optimal control problem, then we are sure that if we have an extremal and it is a solution and it fits into the how should I state this? So if we have an extremal, then it could or could be an extremal may be a solution of the optimal control problem, and an extremal may not be the solution of the optimal control problem. Solution means that if you plug in the values of these extremal into the control problem, then you satisfy all the constraints and you have some value of the cost function related to these three functions. So two functions and one scalar. So the cost that you obtain using this extremal is the minimum possible cost if this extremal actually does solve the problem. So if you plug in the value of the first you find the extremal, then you plug in the values of the extremal into the optimal control problem, and you find some cost function value and other things. And if those values are calculated, like those values are you are able to calculate the values, you are able to solve the problem, then it means that since it was an extremal, then being a solution means that it is the optimal solution of the control problem. But if this triple is not an extremal, then you can guarantee that this can never be the solution to optimal control problem. If a triple is not an extremal, then it can never be the solution of optimal control problem. If a triple is an extremal, then it may or may not be the solution of optimal control problem. You still have to check. So this is what it means for necessary condition. So necessary condition means that if it is satisfied, then you have a hope for solving the problem. But if this condition is not satisfied by some triple, then there is no way that this triple can solve the optimal control problem. So a remark here is that note that the control values can be selected from the closed set and the values of the boundary are allowed. And this is one of the main advances of control, optimal control. The Pontryagin maximum principle is one of the main advances. And the case where omega is open or omega is neither open nor closed are also permitted, but they are not discussed in this lecture. Alright, so since the Pontryagin maximum principle, the statement itself is quite small, but the underlying theory and the definition of extremal is very, very detailed and complex. So we owe at least one example on how to formulate all of these problems. So I give you an example of Pontryagin maximum principle. So consider a nonlinear system where we have two states, x1 dot is equal to x2 plus 0.2 x1 square and x2 dot is equal to u. This is a nonlinear system with two state variables, and in this case we have f of x equal it is a vector of 2 cross 1 x2 plus 0.2 x1 square, and the second element is u, and partial f by partial x will be a Jacobian matrix which will be something like this: 0.4 x1 1 0 0. And now consider the following cost function. So let us assume that we have a final time t1 equal 5 and we want x1 to be equal to 2 at t equal 5. So we have the cost function x1 at 5 minus 2 square. It means that if x1 is not equal to 2 at t equal 5, then we have some cost corresponding to that situation. So we want x1 to go to value 2 by the time t equal 5 seconds. And then there is the integral cost so integral cost function is quadratic in this case. So the integral cost is cost on the state variable values x1 square plus x2 square, and then there is 2 times u square. So all quadratic terms, which might remind you somewhat of the LQR problem, but this is a little bit more generic than LQR. I could have selected any term, any type of term here, non-quadratic as well. So here we have the terminal cost function as x1 at 5 minus 2 square, and the integral cost function as x1 square plus x2 square plus 2u square, and the terminal time t1 is 5 seconds. So this is we are formulating the optimal control problem, and furthermore we assume this following terminal constraint, that x1 at 5 minus 2 must be 0. So this is a constraint that we have to satisfy. So notice that this constraint is in line with the terminal cost function. So usually this will happen in the real problems. Then we continue with the example. We formulate the adjoint equations. We know that the adjoint equations are minus partial f by partial x into p minus p naught into partial l by partial x. So if you see if you take the transpose of partial f by partial x that is presented in the previous slide, that becomes something like this, and p1 and p2 are 2 adjoint variables, and then minus p naught, which is a constant, which could be either 0 or 1. And then if you take the derivative of L with respect to x1, then it will be 2x1, and if you take derivative of L with respect to x2, it will be 2x2, because L function is x1 square plus L2 square plus 2 times u square. So when you take the derivative with respect to x1 and x2, it will turn out to be this vector. So we have found out the adjoint equations for our problem. Next we find the transversality conditions. So transversality conditions are like this. So we have already, so in this case we have only one constraint on the system, so j is equal to 1. So there will be only one vector on the right hand side and only one vector on the left hand side. So what is our constraint? The constraint is that x1 at the time 5 minus 2 should be equal to 0. So x1 at t1 minus 2 should be 0. That is our only constraint, which will be g1 in this case. So this is what happens when I plug in the values. So p of t1 becomes p p1 and p2. So p is a vector. This is p1 at value 5 and p2 at value 5 minus p naught into partial k by partial x. If you take, because k involve only x1 and no x2, so partial k by partial x2 will be 0. That is why here with p2 there is nothing that is being subtracted, but with p1 there is a subtraction of 2 times p naught into x1 at 5 minus 2, which is the partial derivative of k with respect to x. And also if you plug in the values in the Hamiltonian is p naught times L, which is x1 square plus x2 square plus 2 times u square, plus p1 times the first component of the dynamics f of x, and p2 times the second component of the dynamics. This is p transpose times f. So this is total Hamiltonian that we have here. And then our constraint, which is x1 minus 2, should be 0. If you take the derivative of the constraint with respect to x1, that will be just 1. And if you take the derivative of the constraint with respect to x2, there is no x2 appearing in the constraint, so this will be 0. And if you take the derivative of the constraint with respect to time, if you use the chain rule, then partial g1 by partial t is partial g1 by partial x1 times partial x1 by partial t, or you can say partial g1 by partial x into partial x by partial t. In this case x2 is not appearing in g1, so we can ignore x2 and we just have partial g by partial x1 is 1 and partial x1 by partial t is x2 plus 0.2 x1 square. So we plug in these values. These are the transversality conditions. So we have basically formulated the optimal control problem. We have formulated the transversality conditions. These will give us the final. For example, if you see that, you can see straight away, if you choose alpha 1 to be equal to 1 and p naught to be equal to 0, then p1 at 5 is 1 and p2 at 5 is 0, and we have this differential equation for adjoint variables. So we find the terminal values of adjoint variables, and we solve the differential equation backward in time, and we can find the p of t, p1 of t and p2 of t. That will be the trajectory of adjoint variables, but we are not going to go into that in this lecture. This you can either study on your own or take a course on optimal control theory, then you will be able to study this in proper detail. Here we are just discussing the concept and seeing, understanding how we implement the concept onto some example, and this equation will give us the final or terminal conditions on x2, because we already have the terminal condition on x1, but we can calculate the terminal condition on x2 using this third equation, because first two equations will give us terminal conditions on p1 and p2. We can use them in the third equation and find the terminal condition on x2. Then we have terminal condition on p1, p2, x1, x2, and we can solve four differential equations, x1 dot, x2 dot, p1 dot, p2 dot, simultaneously backwards, and we can get trajectories of x and p. And then we can also find u, which minimizes the Hamiltonian, and that might give us the extremal, and then we check whether that extremal solves the optimal control problem, and if it does, then that is the solution to the optimal control problem, and if it does not, then well, that extremal is well, if there is a solution to optimal control problem, then it is required for that solution to be an extremal. So if there are more than one extremals, then one of those could be the solution to the optimal control problem. But if there is only one extremal, then it is bound to be the solution of the optimal control problem. Okay, this is all I would like to discuss in this lecture. At the end, I would briefly summarize what I have covered in this lecture, and then we close this topic, because this is just a standalone topic in our discussion. Okay, we started our discussion with basic ingredients of optimal control problem, which are equations of motion, cost function, initial conditions, terminal conditions, control constraints, state constraints, and mixed control and state constraints. And then the optimal control problem, we looked at its classification with respect to different forms of the cost function, Mayer's problem, Lagrange problem, and Bolt's problem, which are interconvertible, but we did not look at how to convert one problem into another, other than just looking at L is equal to 0 in Mayer's problem and K is equal to 0 in Lagrange problem, whereas Bolt's problem is fully generic. And then we looked at the time optimization problem, where K is equal to 0 and L is equal to 1. And then we have formal statement for necessary conditions for optimality. We formulated the control problem, where we specify the cost function, we specify the dynamics, the initial conditions, the constraints, the control input, the subset to which control input belongs. We specify the range of time to which in which we are solving this control problem. And then we move on to smoothness assumptions. We assume that the system dynamics and cost functions all are smooth with respect to the states and with respect to the time. Here there is a typo, that this should be partial L by partial T, which should be defined and continuous. And then these conditions should hold for all the states and all control input values. Then we defined the extremal, which was the basic part of today's lecture. The definition of extremal is that it is a tuple, it is a triple which satisfies a whole bunch of conditions, including the satisfaction of equation of motion, the satisfaction of constraints, the satisfaction or existence of adjoint variable trajectories, and satisfaction of this constraint where p naught and alpha cannot be simultaneously zero, satisfaction of adjoint equations, satisfaction of transversality conditions, and the satisfaction that the Hamiltonian should be minimized by control ut in the triple, and that means that any other function other than ut in the set of possible control signals should have Hamiltonian value greater than or equal to the Hamiltonian value achieved by u of t. Then we looked at adjoint equations, which are basically the partial derivative of Hamiltonian with respect to the state, and then transversality conditions, which are basically a bunch of conditions on the final time or the terminal conditions, basically on the adjoint variables and the Hamiltonian, and in terms of the constraints. So when we equate these n plus 1 cross 1 and equal to n plus 1 cross 1 vector, then we get the transversality condition, which help us in determining the terminal conditions on adjoint variables and the state variables. Then we stated the Pontryagin maximum principle, which says that if you have a solution to the control problem, then that solution must be an extremal. So no solution there is no possibility of solving optimal control problem without having the solution to be an extremal. So in order to apply PMP, what we do is we calculate all the extremals, and one of those extremals is bound to be a solution, because nothing other than an extremal can be a solution. So you calculate all the extremals, and one of those extremals is bound to be a solution. Then the remark is that control values which have to be piecewise continuous comes from a closed and bounded set, but if the set is not bounded or not closed then this PMP can be applied, but we are not discussing that part. And PMP is basically one of the major advances in optimal control theory. And we look at an example where we formulate the problem in terms of PMP, where we have a nonlinear system for which we specify the cost function, we specify the constraints on the state variables, and we calculate the adjoint equations based on our constraints and based on our dynamics of the system and based on our cost function, and we calculate the transversality conditions again based on our cost function and based on our dynamics and based on our constraints. And once we have all this in place, we can calculate the terminal conditions on the adjoint and state variables and calculate the trajectories x of t, p of t, and then we can also have u of t from the minimization of Hamiltonian. And that is all I would like to discuss today in this lecture. I hope that you were able to understand the concepts. Don't worry if you don't feel like being able to exercise optimal control theory, because one lecture is not supposed to make you an expert on optimal control. It is just supposed to give you an idea of the concepts in optimal control theory and what it takes to learn optimal control. And if you have any questions, please do let me know. Thank you.